Yeah, we are live. Hi everyone, welcome to the Google Developer Space channel. I'm Jiaxing and this is Shafras, and we have Rendy and Evgeny, our cloud Google developer experts joining us today. Yeah, so we have a couple of minutes till our session starts at 8 p.m. So yeah, we would like to find out a bit more about Shafras and Rendy and Evgeny. So yeah, maybe we can just share, what do you usually do to unwind after work? For instance, today. Yeah.
Oh, wow. So what I do to unwind. So I usually take about an hour's nap after work, and then then I wake up. Then I'm a avid fan of playing Angry Birds, right? So I play Angry Birds a little moment, and then only I start whatever that I should do. It could be preparing meal, or maybe I don't know, maybe taking a shower.
Cool. That's interesting.
How
What
about
about
you,
Rendy or
Evgeny?
Evgeny?
Yeah, for me, I like watching YouTube or Netflix, sometimes reading books. Yeah, so one of the recent books that I have read is called How Google Works. Yeah, so it's from previous CEO of Google.
Eric Schmidt,
and Eric Schmidt. And one of the things that I like, I remembered he was talking about they had a list of different projects inside the company that they were working on, and they tried to identify which projects were successful and which weren't. So one of the criteria they said is if a project has some technical insight and on which this product is built, then it's more likely to be successful. So for example, for Google search, its technical insight is the page rank algorithm, the clever algorithm that allows to rank pages on the internet. Like for AdWords, for example, it ranks ads by how often people click on ads. And for Google News, they thought that grouping news by topic rather than by source is a better strategy. So it's quite interesting. Yeah. So after this book, I try to analyze project from this perspective, try to see some technical insights, some innovation, that comes with the product to know whether it will succeed or not.
Wow, that's cool. I also started reading that book, but I think I'm still at the first few chapters. So yeah, I'm really inspired to continue reading after what you shared.
Oh wow, cool. I should try it out too.
Yeah. Rendy, what about you? Oh.
Yeah, I think after work, usually I play with my daftar. So I have to daftar.
Oh.
Right? Yeah. And I think even during me working, they usually come and ask for playing, right? So,
Wow.
But it's fun. I mean, like, it's fun. Like, no, I'm meeting right now.
So they appear in a lot of your video calls.
Yeah. But currently they're in their grandparents' parents, so yeah. I'm safe.
Yeah.
Nice.
I've seen there were like stories which Rendy puts out with her daughter. You also goes out, right? So yeah. I think it's a very good way to unwind too. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, so maybe Shafra, shall we start the session?
Yeah, we can.
Okay. Yeah, so let's move Rendy and Evgeny to the backstage. Okay. Hi everyone. So we hope you are keeping safe and well wherever you are. Do leave a comment on our live chat, whether you are tuning in from Facebook or YouTube, to let us know where you are tuning in from. And before we begin the second In the Cloud event, let us share a little about who we are and what this is all about. So Google Developer Space is a home for developers and startups from around the region to learn, connect, engage, and be inspired. We want to empower and connect the community to our programs, people, network, and technologies. So without further ado, I would like to pass the stage over to Shafras, our main host for tonight. Yeah, Shafras, do share with us more about today's topic and the speakers who we have with us.
Awesome. Thanks, Jasin, for the opportunity, and the whole developer space team for giving us, accommodating us through Google developer space channel here in Singapore. So, hey everyone, thank you for tuning in for our second cloud in the cloud talk show. In our previous show, we spoke about the serverless technologies in Google Cloud Platform, and there were lots of interesting conversations, a lot of interesting questions around serverless technologies, and you have also shared your feedback in terms of how we should conduct this talk show, and we have got a couple of your feedback, and I've included that into this talk show as well. So today we are going to talk about data analytics. It's mainly about Google Cloud's data analytics related tools, technologies. So Google Cloud is popular among data engineers and data scientists, cloud architects, as it provides variety of data analytics tools to lift and shift data, build data pipelines, cleaning data, batch and stream processing, analytics, and data warehousing, all the way from ingesting to presenting data, which covers almost the whole like the spectrum of data analysis, right? So it also includes Google Cloud PubSub, Dataproc, Dataflow, BigQuery are some of the popular tools which are available. So to talk about data analytics on GCP, we have two guest speakers with us today. So the first speaker that we have is Rendy. Rendy is a Google Google developer expert focusing on cloud. So let me have their banners up as well. And we see he's also a senior data manager at Ruangguru, and he's based out of Indonesia. Then the second speaker that we have is Evgeny. Evgeny is another Google developer expert focusing on cloud, and both of them are from data analytics background. And Evgeny is the co-founder of DeFi.ai and nansen.ai as well. So without taking much time, let me invite Evgeny and Rendy to the show. Welcome, Evgeny. Welcome, Rendy, to the show.
Hi.
Hi, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you for joining. Thank you for taking time despite your busy schedules. And we had some fun. We did know what you're doing, like to unwind, but we have taken that time off today from you to be present at this live session with us. So before we start off, to all our viewers, I would like to remind to stay tuned until the end, as we have some virtual gift giveaways and communicate announcements on free training and discounts for certifications. So stay tuned. And if you have any questions, please do not hesitate to ask us through our live chat in YouTube, or you can comment in the Facebook live stream as well. So mainly this conversation is going to have two segments. The first segment is the rapid fireside chat, and the second segment is going to be a deep dive where we'll take one topic and we'll talk deep dive into that particular topic area. So without taking much time, let me invite both of our speakers into the fireside chat. Awesome. So during this fireside chat, we will actually be asking 5 questions. Each will be directed towards Rendy, and another one, like some will be directed to Evgeny. These will be main topic areas, which are like some of them are very high-level topic areas, and some are very specific topic areas in terms of data analytics, and we think that will be useful for all of our viewers. And please do not forget to ask questions in the chat segment, so we can direct them to the speakers at the end of the program. So without taking much time, let's ask Rendy the first question. So Rendy, why do you think big data analytics is important?
Okay, so yeah, when we are talking about big data analytics, it's about both the data and also the analytics part. Means like when we're talking about big data, it's big in terms of volume, velocity, and variety, right? And when we are talking about analytics, it's about how we utilize data using like some analytics technique to get value from it. And when we are talking about utilizing the data, it's usually, in my opinion, go into two big categories. The first one is you are trying to get insight from it, means you're trying to take some decision from the data, or you create a product from it. Like, for example, you create a recommendation system or fraud detection, text analysis, whatever. And nowadays, I feel that big data analytics is something that if you don't really do it, in your business or organization, you are kind of like behind because everyone's doing it, right? As simple as that. And if you do it really, really well, then it will become your competitive advantage. So I think that's why big data analytics is quite important.
Awesome. Thanks, Rendy, for that explanation. The second question goes to Evgeny. So, Evgeny, how does GCP enable big data analytics, and what tools does it provide for that purpose?
Okay, yes. So GCP provides the full range of services for anything that has to do with data. So starting with data collection, data processing and cleaning, data exploration, analytics, and machine learning. So a few notable services that I wanted to mention is, of course, BigQuery. That's everyone's favorite, of course. So BigQuery allows you to analyze petabytes of data using SQL. It's blazing fast and it requires zero operational overhead. It's a columnar database, which means it's optimized for slice and dice types of queries. So queries where you do a lot of grouping, aggregations, analytics functions, etc. And BigQuery also has a lot of really cool features. So for example, you can query data from Google Spreadsheets. You can do data partitioning and clustering, and it also has built-in machine learning capabilities. Yeah. So another great service in GCP is Dataflow. So it's a fully managed data processing service, and it enables unified stream and batch data processing. Dataflow is built on an open source project, Apache Beam, and it allows you to define data processing pipelines as DAGs, which is directed acyclic graphs. And you can define those DAGs in Python, Java, or Scala. There is also another great service, Google Data Studio. It's a dashboarding tool, and it allows you to connect to various data sources, including BigQuery and many others like Postgres or MySQL databases. It allows you to build visualizations, combine these visualizations into reports, and share these reports with anyone. There are also Cloud PubSub, Cloud Composer, Dataproc. All of these tools, they really simplify a lot of data engineering and analytics tasks.
Awesome. All right. So in the third question, we're going to ask Rendy. So Rendy, Cloud Composer and data catalog, what's used for what purpose, and what are its benefits? Because this is something some of data engineers are using already, and some they're quite new to it. So can you explain the whole idea behind it?
Sure. I think you can show the diagram.
Yeah.
So when we are talking about Composer, it's actually, we are talking about dependency management. So as you can see there, usually when we are processing data, the first step is you are collecting data from various sources, be it databases or external API or maybe file system, and then you put it into a place that you would like to process the data together, and then you push that into downstream when you are done with that. And usually it's scheduled, and it's also has a dependency, like the job on the left has to finish first before the job on the right kicked off. So Cloud Composer is based on an open source called Apache Airflow, and it's a managed service. I myself has experience on managing Airflow by my own, and it's something hard. And I'm very happy to have Cloud Composer as one of the services that is provided by Google, because you don't have to worry about infrastructure and you can just use the tools to manage your dependency. And the second one is about data catalog. So when we are talking about data catalog, I think you can go to the next one, Safras. It's more about like discoverability, right? The problem of having data lake, data warehouse, or any big data analytics is usually you have duplicates of data, and that's usually is caused by people just don't know where your data is, right? So by having data catalog and putting some description on your table columns, people can find your data, and they end up using the data that is actually act as a single source of truth instead of creating a new one and a new one. So I think those are the benefits and difference for Code Composer and data catalog software.
Awesome. Thanks, Rendy, for that explanation. I think the diagrams, of course, gives a lot of understanding about it. And I think like after the session, we can have these diagrams available to you so that you also can get a hang of it in case if you weren't able to like grasp the whole like pictures. So we'll be able to have it after the event as well as a comment or even description in the YouTube itself. All right, so the fourth question is going to Evgeny. So Evgeny, you are working closely with Google, and your work also was mentioned in the Forbes magazine around building data, public data infrastructure for a very interesting topic here, which is on blockchain. And you also have built something very interesting around blockchain as well. Can you explain about blockchain ETL? How is it built, and which data analytics tools have you used for this project?
Yeah, sure. So blockchain ETL is an open source software suite, and it's also a public data platform for blockchains. We built blockchain ETL using a lot of services from Google Cloud Platform. So yeah, let me walk you through the architecture of blockchain ETL. So we utilize the Lambda architecture. So as you can see on the diagram, there are two parts, two pipelines. The first, the batch pipeline on the bottom in green, which runs on Cloud Composer. As Rendy explained, it allows you to schedule different tasks. So the tasks that are run daily, that they export the data from blockchain nodes to CSV files in cloud storage, and they upload these files into tables in BigQuery. And the second pipeline is a real-time pipeline, as you can see on the diagram on the top in blue. So to build the real-time pipeline, we used Google Kubernetes Engine to run the streamer component. We publish the blockchain data into pub subtopics, and using the cloud data flow, we then move this data from pub subtopics into BigQuery tables. We then share these pub subtopics and BigQuery tables for everyone, so that they can use this data for analytics. They can use it to build various applications on top of it. So as an example, we built an analytics platform using this data. It's called nansen.ai. And so another example, we also built a Twitter bot that posts anomalous transactions on Twitter. So whenever there is a transaction that looks anomalous, for example, it has very high value in it, or maybe some funds are moving from exchanges, we publish a post on Twitter.
Awesome. So it's also curious to know, like blockchain is one of the very well like it's one of the hot topics nowadays, right? So what sort of what made you to build this whole blockchain ETL in the first place?
Yeah, so yeah, that's a really good question. So one of the problems that companies, blockchain companies, they face is running these nodes is very expensive, and synchronizing nodes, it can take a lot of time, like up to a month or even more than a month. And yeah, teams and people, they have to spend a lot of money and time to synchronize the nodes, run the ETL pipelines, clean, process this data. So using the GCP technology allows us to do this in one place. So instead of like 1,000 or 2,000 people doing the same ETL processes, we do it ourselves in our own project, and then we share this process data with everyone. So as I said, BigQuery tables and pub subtopics, they are public. So anyone can just go to BigQuery console and start getting insights from BigQuery using like simple or complex SQLs. So yeah, so it allows people to really save time and resources.
Awesome. So I think this is also for publicly available data, or can this be used by like for different companies, like internal processing as well?
Yeah. So this public data, it can be combined with proprietary data. So if companies they collect some data from other sources, they can then easily join this data together, right? So BigQuery allows you to easily do this. Yeah, and yeah, you can build really powerful applications using this data.
Got it. Okay. Thanks, Evgeny, for sharing that insight with us. So now we are in the final question in the rapid fireside chat, and this is a very interesting question area where a lot of people have asked as well. As Evgeny and Rendy mentioned, that BigQuery is one of the areas a lot of data engineers are using. Who's also keen about how can they use like different best practices to kind of reduce their costs as well. So the question to Rendy would be, BigQuery is widely used product in GCP. So what are your recommendation best practices on optimizing its usage costs?
Okay, so I think before we optimize the cost, we need to understand how BigQuery is built first, right?
Yeah.
BigQuery is built based on two aspects. First is, of course, the data that you store in BigQuery. And second is how much you query the data. So what I'm trying to explain here is on-demand pricing, because there's also flat pricing where you can just pay for fixed amount of price. If you know how your workload is, maybe that's better. And for the on-demand pricing, one thing that you need to be aware is storage is kind of like taken care. Because usually in the traditional RDBMS or traditional data warehouse, you need to kind of have a hot versus cold data. You put hot data, the most recent data, in the places that is easy to access, and you put the cold data is harder to access. It's still accessible, but harder to access and cheaper, right? But for in BigQuery, it's automatically handled. If you don't touch the data, don't update the data, or don't replace the partition in 60 days, the storage cost will be halved. So I think that's one thing that you need to be aware about. And the second, about the query, since BigQuery is built by size of the query itself, so one tips is to partition a table, right? So for example, if you have transaction table or user event table, you can partition it by date, and then you can put the query as the illustration show you. You put the partition date in certain range, because usually, even if you have 7 years or maybe 10 years of data, you only need maybe most of the time last several months or 1 year of data, right? So having the partition in place really helps you to reduce your cost. And the second is try to really choose the column that you need. Avoid select star. Like for example, if you do select star, then it will choose all the column and it will be quite pricey. Utilize the preview. So in the Google Cloud Console, BigQuery UI, you will see there is a preview there. You can see the preview to see the sample of the data instead of the select star. So I think those are the major areas that we can optimize. And the quite recent one, I think last year, BigQuery add clustering. Think of clustering like you have your BigQuery table have one index, right? And for example, if you have a customer table which is queried by customer ID quite frequently, then you might want to cluster by customer ID or by country, right, or by region. That's one way to do it as well. So partition table, clustering, query with where clause and selected columns are the best practices to reduce cost.
Awesome. So, Rendy, another quick question is that now,
sure.
Like in BigQuery, you also mentioned that it works as a data storage as well. So, do you have any like because it hot data and cold data both of it, right? So, do you recommend the cold data to stay in BigQuery, or do you recommend it to be ported into somewhere else after a certain period of time? How does it work?
Sure. I think it depends on your use case. At least for my experience, most of the time it's enough to be everything in BigQuery because it's actually simpler. Simpler because it's in one place and the price is also already half of the normal price. But it really depends on the organization. If the organization would like to be really, really prudent, right? Then you might want to move that to GCS, for example, and take the cheapest possible pricing there.
Awesome. All right. So that concludes our rapid fireside chat. So I think there were questions which has already come in. We can take those during our Q&A session. There were like interesting questions around Cloud Composer, BigQuery, and also questions around blockchain ETL as well. So we'll take on those questions during the Q&A session. Now we are moving on to our next segment, which is the cloud deep dive. So in this section, what we'll do is we'll take one topic area and we'll be discussing a little deeper on this particular topic area to understand how Rendy and Evgeny will take approaches in terms of addressing these the certain areas of the topic, and also try to see what are the sort of best practices that they have already have taken as well. So the question for today is that what is a data lake and how can a data lake be built and secured using GCP data analytics? So that's the question that we have. So let me repeat it again. So the question for today is, what is a data lake and how can a data lake be built and secured using data analytics tools and technologies that we have inside GCP? So I think floor is yours. Evgeny, Rendy, who wants to go first?
Yeah, I would like to start.
Yeah.
So first let me explain what data lake is. So data lake is a central repository where you can keep all your structured and unstructured data. So it's different from a data warehouse, for example, where in the warehouse you only keep your structured data where the schema is already well understood. So, for example, orders or order details and inventory. And data lake allows you to store your data as is without having to first structure it. So, for example, you may store raw logs, data from clickstreams, and data from IoT devices. But at the same time, this raw data is only useful if you can still extract some insights from it, right? So thus, you still need to build all the workflows and to process and clean this data and produce structured data. So you can think of it as having two layers. The first layer is when you have the raw data in the data lake, and then you have pipelines to clean and process the data, and it produces the structured and clean data in your data warehouse. Well, in fact, there is also a third layer. It's data marts, and so data marts is a part of your data warehouse, which is oriented to specific departments, to certain departments or teams in your organization. So, for example, you might have a data mart for your business development team, another data mart for your marketing team, etc. So, and GCP provides everything for both data lakes, data warehouses, data marts. So, for example, you can keep your raw data in Google Cloud Storage and your structured data in Google BigQuery. And I think Rendy will be able to elaborate more on this.
Sure. So yeah, usually when you're talking about data lake, as Evgeny explained, we try to put data from all over the places. That's why it's called lake, like the downstream of rivers, right? And what we need to be careful when we are talking about data lake is to really make it tidy, because people might get lost because they are all raw data. And usually what we do is whether we put it on GCS or we put it in JSON in BigQuery as well. That's also possible. So usually what I did is I put some unstructured data, like for example videos, sounds on GCS, right? And the rest is on BigQuery. And the batch job will kick off in BigQuery by using SQL. And I usually like design the data from data lake into data warehouse in different data sets. So the datasets for the raw data, and then datasets for the intermediate data, and then datasets for the final data. And then after final data, as Evgeny explained, it's usually data mart, because it's more specific for certain business subject or subject area. And it's usually closer to business in terms of like definition, etc. Meanwhile, in data warehouse, it's more like how you model data to make it easy to use. And as I said before, I mostly use BigQuery for this purpose. And how you secure the data on the data lake and data warehouse is quite easy. For example, in BigQuery, you can use either on dataset level or on column level. So on column level, you can utilize data catalog for that one. You can tag which column can be seen by which team, right? So you can manage the team by, I usually use Google Groups. Because Google Groups is kind of like easy to use. You can just list the emails of the team member, right, and share it to the team member for the data set. So it's can be secured, only shown to the people that really need it, because data is also the trust of customer to us, right? So we need to really take care about the data as well. So yeah, that's how I usually use BigQuery and GCP technology to tackle data lake use cases.
Yeah, awesome. So Evgeny, you also mentioned that like data lakes are being used in nansen.ai. So what other type of approaches do you take over there?
Yeah, so for at Nansen, we don't deal with a lot of unstructured data. So we mostly have structured data, like blockchain data, like blocks, transactions, like decentralized exchanges. And so, yeah, most of the data we keep in BigQuery. And also to transform this data and create data marts, we utilize an open source project called DBT. So DBT, it enables analytics engineers to transform data in the warehouses by simply writing select statements. So you can imagine that you have some source table, and then you need to transform the source table into some intermediary view, right? And then this view might be used in some two other result tables, right? So in DBT, you can do it very simply by defining this intermediate view as an SQL. And when you define the resulting tables, you can just refer to the intermediate view as a dependency. And DBT is going to resolve all of the dependencies and figure out in which order it should run the SQL queries. And also you can specify things like whether you want to materialize your view as a table or as a view. Another cool feature is it allows you to incrementally update tables, etc. So one example from Nansen is we had to infer the prices of different assets on the blockchain, right? And then so the source data for this would be DEX, decentralized exchanges, trades. And then we use these trades from multiple exchanges. We combine this data and aggregate, and we derive the final price for different assets. So for this purpose, we use a lot of DBT functionality, and it's really been helpful for us.
Awesome. So Evgeny, in terms of like security, taking care of security, all these data lakes. So now one thing what Rendy mentioned was put column level security, etc. So apart from that, what else do you think security, like where else or what else should like data engineers should consider in terms of increasing the security of all this data in data lake?
Yeah, as Rendy said, for BigQuery tables, you can use the dataset level security, right? And I wanted to add that for your raw data, if you use Google Cloud Storage, right? So it's also fully integrated with IAM, Identity and Access Management Service in GCP. And you can also use ACLs, access control lists to secure your data on the object level. Right, so it's you can really go very granular when you define your ACLs in GCS, and yeah, so that's, I think the best practice is rely on what GCP provides for security, namely the IAM, the Identity and Access Management.
So Rendy, now BigQuery is known for OLAP. And then BigQuery is one of the key main resources which you mentioned in terms of building data lake, which is useful, right? So that's mainly to kind of store end-to-end lies. So like getting all this data into data lake can be challenging as well sometimes. It could be from an on-prem or it could be from another cloud provider, etc. Like throughout this journey, where do you see like the security plays a major role in terms of getting getting all this data into the data lake itself?
Sure. So I think when we are talking about getting data from other sources, usually what we really need to take care is actually the credential of the source. Like for example, a database user and password, etc. So take one example. Let's say we are using Cloud Composer. It has a built-in feature to make it encrypted so that no one can see the key of the user and password of the database, right? So I think that's the key part where you need to kind of like be careful about, like using, I don't know, KMS or something that is really secure to really secure the credential is something that you need to take care about.
Awesome. So now there are like, we know for a fact there are different IAMs available. There are like very granular levels that you could use, like it could be like predefined ones, or maybe you can create your own custom level ones. So now like in terms of security, like the multiple projects that you have worked, what do you usually use in terms of, do you go for with the predefined roles, or do you like recommend people create their own roles as required?
I think it's like different for each of the use cases, but for most of the time, usually the default one suffice. So what I do usually, I make kind of like a structure, hierarchical structure of the team itself. Like usually there is a smaller team, right? And smaller team part of the bigger team, which consists of smaller teams. And it's managed using a Google group so that I can assign the IAM role to the Google group easily. And each of the manager can handle their own team member, right? So that's how I usually use it. And regarding the IAM, for most of the time, the default one should be enough. Yeah.
Okay. Which means like the predefined ones, right?
Yeah. And I realized that recently there are some predefined edit as well. So I have a use case where it's quite hard to share a data catalog to someone. And I realized recently it is edited as a predefined. So yeah, I think someone maybe raised that issue as well.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, most of the time predefined getting enriched and easier to use.
Yeah, that's I think one of the best practices. I think Google also recommends to use sort of predefined roles in case, or otherwise if you like really wants to create in terms of getting all those what do you call security measures in place through IAM. So I think that was very good discussions around like what's a data lake and how it can be built and secured using GCP analytics. So I think now we actually can move on to Q&A session, and we have quite a number of questions coming in from our viewers. So we have Harzwan asking quite a lot of questions today around Data Composer and then Data Catalog as well. So I think, all right. So Harizwan is asking something around costing. A quick look at data catalog pricing seems quite pricey. How does one argue that the benefits of data catalog outweigh the cost of it?
Okay, I think I'll take this one.
Yeah, okay.
So I myself have been part of a team that actually assessed several solutions out there, and in my opinion, it's quite cheap compared to others. I'm not trying to be biased here, but it's actually for a good sake as well. I'm trying to look for what's cheapest out there, and so if you try to see the benefit, when someone tried to look for the data and couldn't find the data, and they end up trying to cleanse the data and create their own data, actually it might be a lot more costly in terms of like time that is spent to create the data, time to maintain many tables, right? So in terms of pricing, you can't really see whether it's kind of like exists or not. You need to also see like how actually it can solve your problems, and the best way to do it maybe to discuss with people that actually have already faced that problem, so that you can avoid that problem in your organization. And one of the problems that I face is so many duplicated data because people just don't know where the data is. Yeah.
Awesome. So and then again, Harizwan has another questions around like the blockchain segment in Fireside Chat. What does the streamer do? Is it a separate Kubernetes cluster? I think that's more towards Evgeny.
Yeah. So yeah, it's running in a separate Kubernetes cluster, and what it's doing is it's polling the blockchain node for new blocks every 10 seconds, and then it's pushing this data into PubSub. Yeah, so it's a very simple component that's just moving the data from the blockchain nodes into PubSub topics.
Awesome.
Yeah, and it's in a separate cluster for separation of concern. We don't run it in the same Kubernetes cluster as our blockchain nodes, right? Because yeah, we just try to separate different concerns. So we, for example, run blockchain nodes in one GCP project, and one team takes care of all the blockchain nodes, making sure there is no downtime, keeping track of all the login monitoring, etc. And the streamer and the ETL part is in a different project, and it's a different GKE cluster.
Awesome. I think there's another question from Taraka. He's asking, is there an easy way which we can rename the BigQuery table columns after we use auto detect schema?
From what I know, I think BigQuery doesn't allow you to rename tables and columns, although it's really easy to create a new table using another table as a source. So you can just write an SQL query where you just rename some columns and put the result into another table in BigQuery. Yeah, one complication may be if it's a streaming table to which you stream the data. So the process of renaming here will be a little bit more involved. But overall, yeah, if it's not a streaming table, then it's really easy to rename by copying.
Okay, awesome. And again, we have Divya asking a question around what are the best practices to secure data in GCP data lake. I think both of you had a couple of ideas. If you could summarize those for Divya.
Yeah, I also wanted to add one thing about security. So yeah. Just adding more to choosing between predefined roles and custom roles. So I think in security, it's always a trade-off, same as everywhere. So if you try to follow the least privilege principle, then you would define a lot of custom policies, security policies that really restrict your area, what different roles can access, right? So it's on one end, so it would be really costly because you have to manage these roles yourself, but it also will be more secure. And on the other end is when you use a lot of predefined roles. So it's easier from the management perspective because you don't need to manage your custom policies. But you could also argue that it's less secure because maybe there is some role that is a little bit more coarse-grained and it gives some users more access than they actually should have. So yeah, it's a trade-off and depends on the situation, on how much budget you have to maintain high level of security. So if you have a lot of budget, a lot of people, they can take care of managing the custom policies. Otherwise, we can go with predefined policies.
Understood. And I think there's one question coming from Harizuan. I think when developing pipelines in Data Composer, how does one test the pipeline locally? Does Gcloud CLI provide some sort of local version of Data Composer to try the pipelines out?
What I did usually is to use the open source Airflow on the local because the hard part of having an Apache Airflow is to maintaining the production one, because there are workers, web server, and then Redis or serially forward that you need to maintain. But in local, it's actually quite easy to set up. What I do is I'm creating a kind of like onboarding script. So if someone coming new, they cannot set up it easily in their laptop, and they can just run the Airflow. And if there is any update, and then we can just update the Airflow as well. So how I usually test on local is using Apache Airflow open source.
Okay. I think now Harizuan has another question around when ordering pipelines via dbt or Composer, how do you ensure that the pipelines won't accidentally dump garbage output due to miscalculations, typo formulas, etc.? Run old or new in parallel.
Okay. I think I can share my practice first. So in software engineering, usually there is testing, right? Unit testing, integration tests, etc. And recently, like 13th of July, BigQuery released a feature called Assert. So I'm really happy about it, but because now it's very easy to especially because most of like 90% or maybe more of my ETLs are BigQuery SQL. It is easy to check the BigQuery SQL and BigQuery data by using Assert. So you can do Assert, and then you put your query there. For example, you want to check whether the ID is unique, for example, or your formula doesn't come up with negative values, for example. You can check that values and then put Assert, and then put the error message if something happened with the data. It's really helpful. Why? Because usually SQL will become like maybe hundreds or maybe thousands of lines, and it's just hard to kind of like debug when something happens. Having the test, the assert statements there make me very convenient when we would like to change the logic, because I'm sure there will be the test that will check my data whether it's correct or not. So I suggest you to check that out.
Awesome. So I think there's one last question from Azwan. Is around one of the recently released products in BigQuery, which is BigQuery Omni. That was one of the I think one of the highlighting key areas where BigQuery can be used to query from data sources which are available inside AWS as well. So I think Harizuan wants to know what you all think about BigQuery Omni.
With Smiley.
With Smiley, yeah.
Evgeny, maybe you want to take that.
Oh, I didn't have a chance to try BigQuery Omni, honestly. So yeah, I mean, if you know about it, please share your thoughts.
Yeah. I haven't really tried it as well. What I have experienced with multi-cloud is it's actually quite easy to copy data from one cloud to GCP. This one case when marketing asked me, "Hey, I need this data really urgent. It's in another cloud's file services," and if you check in BigQuery, there is something called BigQuery Transfer, and it's actually support quite many sources out there. And I used that maybe like 10 or 15 minutes. I don't really try to kind of like sell this because it really makes my life better, easier. So I just configure the parent of the file and where is the data in the file, and then it's copied into BigQuery right away. So that's how easy it is now, and maybe it will be even easier with BigQuery Omni, where you can just query it from any source of data right away, like federated query from all over the cloud.
Awesome. So I think we had the opportunity to answer most of the questions which came from YouTube and also from Facebook Live as well. This is that's, I think, that was useful for our viewers today, and also I think that was one of the reasons that we have this conversation, discussion type of activity going on in the cloud. Because so that we could get more insights being shared with our viewers, and also our viewers could ask questions. So awesome. So thank you, Rendy, and thank you, Evgeny, for joining with us today to discuss about data analytics in GCP, how different products can be useful in different scenarios. And we hope we can have you both in the show again, so that with that, I would like to say thank you to our speakers and say goodbye for the moment. And I'll go ahead with this couple of announcements. But before that, thank you, Rendy. Thank you, Evgeny, for joining with us.
Thank you, Safras.
All right. So there are a couple of announcements that I wanted to make. And thank you for all our viewers for joining with us today. So there's a small survey that we want to get your feedback on before we make the announcements and inform about the gift giveaway, which I mentioned earlier. So we'll be flashing you a link. So it will be up now. So please take a couple of moments, scan the QR code or go to this link. Please fill up this form because your feedback really matters to us, as it helps for us to determine the future topics, formats, and also to improve on our quality of the event series in the cloud. So for those who complete this form, our team will pick a few lucky winners and we'll be giving out some prizes as well. So please do take 1 or 2 minutes to fill up this form. All right, thank you very much. I think you have started filling up the form. Thank you for that. Thank you for your valuable feedback. Please do give us your valuable feedback so we can improve on our program. So there are a couple of announcements that I want to make just before we wrap up the session. There are a couple of announcements. The first announcement is there's free training available for you if you want to learn about Google Cloud, any of the data analytics tools that we discussed about. Please do go and sign up through gwo.gle/cloud training. And if you are a person who's interested in taking certification, Google Cloud certification, Associate Cloud Engineer examination could be very useful for you if you want to become a practitioner. So there's 30% discount off available as well through this particular link, gwo.gle/GCP cert offer, which will give you access to like 30% discount upon once you complete certain activity. And the sign up date is on like the final day to sign up is on 15th August. This is not the final day to sign up for your examination. This is the final day to sign up for this particular offer, which is available. And the final announcement, there's a 40% off for GCP machine learning engineer examination beta. If you are a person who's interested in machine learning and GCP machine learning as well, different products which are available, and if you have hands-on experiences, that's something that you could try out. And if you go to the page, there will be resources also mentioned where you could learn and get prepared yourself before the examination. So I think with that, that actually wraps up our second in the cloud session where we spoke about data analytics on GCP. Next month, we'll be talking about another exciting topic, which is on machine learning on Google Cloud Platform. Please do look forward to it. We'll be announcing our speakers by next month as well. And don't forget to subscribe to Developer Space YouTube channel. Click on the bell icon so you'll be notified about the latest events and videos as well. Hope every one of you are doing well. Stay safe, stay healthy. See you all in the cloud.